It was supposed to be a simple job, an undercover sting. An FBI agent, pretending to be a low-level mob member, walked into a dark, cold warehouse in the Bronx on a winter night in 1995. Outside, his team waited for his signal. Inside, hidden cameras were recording. He had done jobs like this many times before. But this time, something went wrong. Minutes passed, then hours. Still no signal. When the team finally went in, they found nothing. The warehouse was empty. No suspects. No agent. On the floor, they found his wire, torn off and thrown in the corner. No blood. No signs of a fight. It was like he had simply disappeared. For 16 years, no one knew what happened. Then one day, an informant came forward. He said he knew exactly where the missing agent was. And what they would find there would give the FBI nightmares forever. This is that story. Like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? It was just after 8 p.m. on February 14, 1995. The Bronx streets were almost empty. Snow from the night before had turned into slick sheets of ice. Streetlights reflected off the wet pavement. It was cold enough that every breath came out like smoke. Two unmarked FBI vans rolled slowly down the block. Inside the first van, 3 agents sat in the dark, their eyes on the warehouse ahead. The second van was parked at the far corner, its headlights off. "Check comms," one agent whispered into a small radio. "Comms good," another voice answered through static. The target was an old warehouse that looked abandoned. But tonight, it was supposed to be the meeting place for a big mob deal, illegal weapons changing hands. The plan was simple. Daniel Cole, one of the Bureau's best undercover agents, would pose as the buyer. His job was to make the deal, get the evidence, and give the signal for the takedown. Outside, the street was silent. No cars drove by. No pedestrians walked past. The only sound was the low hum of the van's engines. In the back of the first van, a large screen showed the live feed from a tiny hidden camera on Daniel's wire. The image was grainy but clear enough to see faces. The team was tense. Everyone knew the mob crew they were targeting had a violent reputation. These weren't small-time thugs. They were known for making people disappear. "Any movement?" one agent asked quietly. "Negative, we're green," the spotter replied from the other van. They waited. The air inside the van felt heavy. Even though the heat was on, everyone's hands were cold. Finally, the radio crackled. It was Daniel. "Moving in," he said in a low voice. From both vans, agents watched as Daniel's figure appeared on the screen, walking toward the warehouse entrance. The big steel door loomed ahead of him. This was the moment everything hinged on. Once Daniel stepped inside, they had to trust his training and hope the mob didn't suspect a thing. An hour before, Daniel sat in the back of the lead van with his handler, Agent Morris. "You know the plan," Morris said, his voice calm but firm. "Keep it short. Make them believe you've got the cash. As soon as you see the guns, give the signal." Daniel nodded. His face showed no fear. He had done this kind of work for years: drug deals, weapons buys, deep cover work in biker gangs. He was the guy they called when a job was too risky for anyone else. "You've got 2 teams covering you," Morris added. "We're right outside. You say the word, we move." Daniel zipped up his heavy coat. Inside, a small microphone was taped under his shirt, the wire running to a transmitter on his belt. A pinhole camera was hidden in a button. Morris handed him a small envelope. Inside were fake bills, props to make the deal look real. "You good?" Morris asked. Daniel gave a quick grin. "I'm good." They shook hands. It wasn't just a handshake. It was the kind of silent moment where both men knew the risks. Outside the van, the wind was cutting. Daniel pulled on gloves, checked his watch, and took a deep breath. 5 minutes, Morris reminded him. Daniel nodded again. No nerves showed. That was the thing about him: calm under pressure, always in control. The radio crackled in Morris's hand. "Spotters report movement at the east entrance," a voice said. Morris looked at Daniel. "That's your cue." Daniel stepped out of the van and into the icy air. His boots crunched on the frozen pavement. The warehouse stood about 100 feet away, its metal siding streaked with rust. The huge steel door looked heavy enough to seal out the world. He walked with slow confidence, shoulders loose, hands in his pockets. The trick to undercover work was to look like you belonged. In his ear, a faint voice from the van said, "We've got you, keep moving." Daniel didn't respond. He didn't want to be seen talking to himself if anyone was watching. Halfway there, a figure stepped out from the shadows by the door. A man in a dark coat, scarf covering half his face. He gave Daniel a quick nod and opened the door. The hinges groaned. A blast of cold, stale air rushed out. Daniel stepped inside. The door clanged shut behind him. In the van, the screen showed the dim interior, bare concrete, stacks of wooden crates. Daniel's voice came through the wire. Then a sudden burst of static. The command van is quiet except for the soft hiss of radio chatter. Everyone's focused on the tiny earpieces pressed to their ears. Daniel's voice comes through clear at first. He's using the prearranged code phrases to signal everything's fine. "Shipment on time," he says calmly. "That means I'm inside." "Temperature's dropping," he adds. "That means 2 suspects in sight." The team exchanges glances. So far, so good. A few seconds later, there's a faint shuffle, like footsteps moving across a concrete floor. Daniel's voice comes back. "Packages, he stops mid-sentence. The agents lean closer to their receivers. There's a sound, quick, sharp, like something hitting the mic. Then, without warning, the channel explodes with loud static. "Cole, do you copy?" the lead agent says into the radio. "Nothing." "Cole, come in," he repeats, his voice tighter now. Still nothing. The static fades into a deep, hollow silence. No breathing, no movement, just dead air. The van fills with tension. Everyone knows what this could mean, but no one says it out loud. Finally, the lead agent mutters, "Move in, now." The order hits the team like a jolt of electricity. They're out the doors in seconds, weapons up, boots pounding against the frozen pavement. The warehouse looms in the distance, dark, cold, and silent. The front door gives way with a hard shove, the steel groaning under the force. "FBI, don't move." The team floods inside, weapons sweeping every shadow. Their flashlight beams slice through the darkness, revealing dust, rust, and broken pallets. No voices answer back. They move in formation, covering corners, checking every blind spot. But the place is deserted. "Clear left," one agent calls. "Clear right," another answers. At the far end of the warehouse, a metal chair sits under a single dangling light bulb. It's empty. The bulb sways slightly, creaking. Something on the floor catches the lead agent's eye. He crouches down and picks it up. It's Daniel's wire. The small mic is snapped in half, the earpiece cord tangled and dirty, as if it had been ripped off and tossed aside. The lead agent stares at it for a moment, then clenches his jaw. This isn't just bad, it's a disaster. "Check the back," he orders. 2 agents disappear into the shadows, clearing the loading docks, the stairwells, the small offices upstairs. All empty. Finally, they regroup in the center of the warehouse. No suspects, no Daniel, no signs of a struggle except for that wire lying on the floor like discarded trash. The lead agent looks around the cavernous space, the silence pressing in on him. They were here minutes ago. Now it's like Daniel just vanished. The team spills out of the warehouse into the frigid night air. Their breaths hang in clouds, the cold biting at their faces. Daniel's unmarked sedan sits exactly where he parked it, half under a streetlight, a thin layer of frost coating the windshield. One agent pulls on a glove and touches the hood. It's ice cold. The car hasn't been started in hours. "Cole wouldn't walk away from his car," the lead agent mutters. They scan the street. Snow covers the cracked asphalt, untouched except for the deep tire tracks from the Bureau's own vehicles. No fresh footprints, no drag marks, nothing. The mob crew's vans, the ones they were sure would be here, are gone, completely. No tail lights in the distance, no sound of engines. It's like they were never there at all. One agent jogs to the corner and peers down the block. The street is lined with closed warehouses, most of them boarded up. No security cameras, No pedestrians, just darkness. Radio traffic's dead. Nothing on the scanners, another agent says, checking his headset. The lead agent stares at the warehouse door. They went in less than 2 minutes after the static hit, but somehow, whoever was inside had slipped away without leaving a single trace. He circles Daniel's car, shining a flashlight through the windows. The driver's seat is adjusted just how Daniel liked it. The passenger seat is empty. No signs of a struggle. The glove box is closed. The radio's off. The key isn't in the ignition, it's gone. That detail lands heavy. Daniel never left his keys. The snow keeps falling, covering everything in a fresh white layer, slowly erasing what little chance they had of finding evidence out here. Finally, the lead agent calls it in. Subject missing, possible abduction. We have no visual on suspects. Stand by for updates. The words echo in the cold. The team gathers near the unmarked car, their flashlights throwing long beams across the empty street. No one speaks for a moment. The only sound is the wind moving between the buildings. One of the older agents, a man who's been with the Bureau for 20 years, finally breaks the silence. "This isn't a grab," he says quietly. The others look at him. "This is a ghosting." The word hangs in the air. Everyone knows what it means. Ghosting isn't just about taking someone, it's about erasing them. No witnesses, no evidence, no trail. The lead agent doesn't argue. Deep down, he knows it's true. The speed, the precision, the total lack of trace. This wasn't a messy mob hit. This was surgical. It's the kind of operation where the victim simply stops existing. One agent swears under his breath. Another kicks at the snow in frustration. The older agent looks back at the warehouse, his face grim. If they can ghost a federal agent in under 2 minutes, we've got a bigger problem than the mob. Nobody disagrees. The lead agent radios HQ again, his voice low and tight. "We've got a ghost." By dawn, the city is in lockdown. Every FBI field office in New York is on high alert. Agents who were supposed to be working other cases are suddenly reassigned. The priority is simple: find Special Agent Daniel Cole. Roadblocks spring up on bridges, tunnels, and major highways. Every car that even slightly matches the description of a mob vehicle from the sting is pulled over. Helicopters circle above, scanning rooftops, alleys, and industrial lots. Surveillance teams are dispatched to known mob hangouts, clubs, bars, and garages. Some places are raided without warning. Doors get kicked in, lights flash, and men are dragged out into the street for questioning. Still no sign of Daniel. At the FBI's New York headquarters, a massive board is set up in the command center. Maps of the city are pinned with red and blue markers. Red means a search has been completed. Blue means an active lead. The board fills fast, too fast. By noon, half the city has already been swept. At one checkpoint, an SUV is stopped. Agents swarm it, weapons drawn, but it's just a delivery driver. Wrong car, wrong time. In another part of the city, a warehouse is raided after an informant claims Daniel is being held there. But when the doors are forced open, the building is empty. Just dust, crates, and rats. The hours drag on. Agents rotate shifts, but no one wants to go home. Every minute they waste feels like a nail in Daniel's coffin. By nightfall, the city is exhausted, the search wide but empty. Daniel Cole is still gone. By the second day, the Bureau turns its focus to the mob. The crew Daniel was targeting has vanished from public view. No one is at the bars they usually control. The corner tables where they drink espresso and smoke cigars sit empty. Wiretaps on mob payphones still pick up conversations, but they're careful, never saying Daniel's name, never mentioning the sting. Still, bits slip through. On one recording, 2 voices laugh. One says, "The feds lost one of their own." The other answers, "Maybe they should start wearing leashes." The agents, listening in, grip their headsets harder. They raid suspected safe houses, but each one is spotless, cleaned out days earlier. It's like the crew knew they were coming. Undercover operatives try to make contact with low-level members. Most won't talk at all. The few that do just smirk. "They say he's gone," one man mutters before walking away. "Gone like he never existed." The mob isn't just refusing to cooperate. They're enjoying this. Back at headquarters, the task force watches the tapes in silence. Every laugh, every sarcastic comment feels like a taunt. One veteran agent says what everyone is thinking. They're not scared of us anymore. It's a dangerous truth. By the third day, tips are pouring in. Some come from well-meaning citizens. Others are from people hopping for a cash reward. The leads sound promising at first. A taxi driver swears he saw Daniel getting into a black sedan near Times Square. Agents rush to pull traffic camera footage. Nothing. An anonymous caller claims Daniel is being kept in a meat locker in Queens. The address turns out to be a closed grocery store, abandoned for years. A man at a diner insists he overheard mobsters bragging about the agent in the basement. Agents check the basement. Just old pipes and water stains. Every time hope spikes, it's crushed. The press is relentless. Cameras are parked outside FBI offices. Headlines scream about the vanished agent. Inside the bureau, frustration is boiling over. Some agents think Daniel is still alive. Others believe they're wasting time, that he's already dead. The official line stays the same. We are pursuing every lead. But in private, morale is cracking. 3 days have passed. No ransom note, no message, no proof of life. Only silence. The calls started 3 nights after Daniel disappeared. His wife, Laura, was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the silent phone when it rang. She grabbed it, almost shouting his name. A man's voice, raspy and uneven, said, "Laura, it's me." Her heart froze. But then the voice changed. It started laughing, a low, mocking laugh. She slammed the phone down, her hands shaking. 2 hours later, it rang again. Another voice, same game. Over the next week, there were 5 more calls, always late at night, always pretending to be Daniel. The FBI traced them, but the lines were routed through payphones and stolen numbers. Laura stopped answering after that. In the living room, their 6-year-old daughter, Emily, clung to a stuffed rabbit, watching her mom with worried eyes. One morning, Emily asked softly, "When Daddy coming home?" Laura tried to smile but couldn't. She said Daddy was working, but Emily wasn't convinced. Kids can feel when something's wrong. At night, Emily would peek out her bedroom window, as if expecting Daniel to pull into the driveway. Weeks passed, the calls stopped. But the silence felt worse. It wasn't just losing him, it was losing hope. Inside the bureau, the mood had shifted. At first, every agent in the New York office wanted in on the case. They worked long nights, digging through files, running surveillance, chasing leads. But after 2 months, the energy was gone. No witnesses, no trace of Daniel, no ransom demands, nothing. The files kept piling up, but they were just filled with the same words: negative results, no findings. Agents began asking to be reassigned, quietly at first, then more openly. One senior agent was overheard saying, "This isn't an investigation anymore, it's a graveyard." Daniel's desk was cleared out, his things packed in boxes. His nameplate was taken down. In the hallway, some avoided talking about him at all. It wasn't because they didn't care. It was because the case scared them. If Daniel could vanish during an FBI sting, so could they. The official line was that the investigation was ongoing. But behind closed doors, people admitted the truth. There was nothing left to work with. The only people still pushing were Daniel's close friends in the bureau, and even they were running out of leads. Every day felt heavier, and somewhere out there, whoever took Daniel was watching. They had gotten away with it. For now, the months turned into years. Agents who had worked Daniel's case began retiring or transferring to other cities. New faces came in, young agents who barely recognized his name. The suspects from that night either vanished into hiding or turned up dead in unrelated incidents. The mob scene in the city shifted. Old crews fell apart. New ones took over. By the 5th year, the investigation wasn't even mentioned at morning briefings anymore. The boxes from Daniel's case were moved to a storage room. Dust gathered on the files. Eventually, the file was slid into a locked cabinet with other unsolved cases. A small label on the folder's spine read, "Carter D. missing." It was just another cold case now, buried under layers of time, forgotten by most, except for the few who had known him. For Daniel's family, there was no moving on. Every birthday, every holiday felt incomplete. Emily grew up without a father to walk her to school or teach her to drive. Laura learned to live with an empty side of the bed. For the FBI, Daniel's disappearance wasn't just a case, it was a scar, a reminder that even one of their own could vanish, and no one might ever know how. It's 2011. For most agents, the name Daniel Carter is just a dusty file in the archives. The people who worked the case are mostly retired. The few who are still around barely talk about it anymore. Then on a quiet Thursday morning, a phone rings inside the FBI's New York field office. The duty agent picks up. The voice on the other end is male, older and steady. "I need to talk to the FBI," he says. "It's about the missing agent from the 90s. At first, the duty agent thinks it's another crank call. The case had drawn all kinds of fakes over the years, people claiming to have visions, secret tapes, even alien theories. But this man sounds different. He gives his name. The agent checks it against the system. It's not a name connected to Daniel's case. Still, the man insists. "I'll come in myself, just make sure it's someone who knows the old case." An hour later, a black sedan pulls up outside the field office. Two agents escort an older man inside. He's wearing a wrinkled sport coat, dark sunglasses, and moves with a slight limp. He says just one thing: "I'm here to confess." The man's name is Frankie Marino. In the 90s, Frankie was a small-time player in one of the city's lesser-known crews. He wasn't a boss. He wasn't a hitman. He was the guy who ran errands, delivering envelopes, watching cars, passing messages. Now at 62, Frankie's hair is thin and gray. His face is lined, but his eyes sharp and calculating, watch every move the agents make. He sits in the interrogation room with his hands folded on the table. There are no cuffs. He came in willingly. An agent slides a recorder across the table. Frankie smirks. "Yeah, go ahead. You're gonna want this on tape." They ask him why he's here. Frankie shrugs. "I've had a good run, but I'm looking at some heavy time now, fraud, tax evasion, all that. I'm too old for a long stretch." He leans back in his chair. "So, I figured maybe we could help each other out." The agents exchange looks. This is a man facing decades in prison. He's calm, almost smug, like he knows he's holding the winning card. And then Frankie says it, quietly, almost casually. "I know what happened to your missing guy." The room goes silent. The lead agent leans forward. "Which missing guy?" Frankie doesn't blink. "The Fed who vanished in '95, Daniel Carter." It's the first time anyone outside law enforcement has said the name in years. The agents study him, trying to read if he's bluffing. Frankie continues. "I can tell you where he went, I can tell you who was there, and I can tell you where to find what's left." He says it so matter-of-factly, like he's talking about the weather. The agents ask why now. Frankie's answer is simple. "I'm not dying in prison. You give me a deal and I give you closure. 16 years you've been chasing ghosts, I can hand you the body." The agents are skeptical. They've heard false confessions before, but something about Frankie's calm tone makes it hard to dismiss. One of them asks for proof. Frankie chuckles. "I'll give you one detail, something only the guys there would know." He leans in and whispers. The agent's face tightens. It's a detail from the original crime scene, never released to the public. Frankie sits back. "So we got a deal or what?" The agents don't answer. Not yet. They step out into the hallway. The lead agent mutters, "If he's telling the truth, this changes everything." Inside the room, Frankie waits, still wearing that smug smile. The agents sit back in their chairs. Frankie has been talking for almost an hour, and most of it is small-time mob gossip, nothing they couldn't find in an old case file. But then, his tone changes. He says that wire he was wearing, it was a Nagra, the little black one with the mic in the collar. The room goes silent. That detail was never released to the public. Only the FBI and whoever was there that night would know it. Frankie keeps going. His car, gray Crown Vic, parked behind the warehouse, keys still in the ignition, and the tires, one of M, was bald on the inside. The lead agent shifts uncomfortably. Frankie's eyes are steady. And Sal was smoking his Chesterfields. Always had that cheap lighter with the dent in it. Flick, 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 like he was nervous. The agents exchange looks. Each thing he's saying is small, but together it's damning. Frankie isn't guessing, he's remembering. One agent asks quietly, "How do you know all this?" Frankie just smirks, "I was there." No one breathes for a moment. This isn't some crank with a story. This is a man who has been carrying a secret for 16 years. And now he's ready to tell it. The lead agent leans forward. "If you were there, then tell me, where is he?" Frankie doesn't blink. "Still in the city, you just never looked in the right place." The agents wait, expecting him to hedge or backtrack. But he doesn't. "I can take you there," Frankie says. "Right now if you want." It's almost too calm, too easy. "Proof," one agent demands. "Give me something to show you're not wasting our time." Frankie shrugs. "When you find him, he'll still be wearing his watch. Gold Seiko. Back of the band's bent. He dropped it once and it never sat right after." Another silence. That watch detail, not in any file, not in any press release. Frankie leans back in his chair. "You're chasing ghosts in the wrong places. You want Daniel Cole, you follow me." The agents can feel it. This is either the moment the case finally cracks, or the moment they realize they've been played by a professional liar. But deep down they know. Frankie knows things no one else should. And if he's telling the truth, then Daniel Cole has been waiting to be found for 16 years. Frankie stops talking for a moment, letting the silence hang. Then he leans forward, elbows on the table. "It's not just a body," he says quietly. "It's a message." The agents glance at each other. Frankie keeps going. "You think they just dumped him?" "No. Where he is, how he's positioned, it was done on purpose. So anyone who found him would know exactly what happens to someone who crosses Sal Marino." His voice is steady, almost like he's reading from a script he's had in his head for years. "They wanted you to find him back then, but you didn't. And that's the only reason I'm sitting here right now." One of the agents asks, "Why tell us now?" Frankie smirks. "Because times change, people get old. Some of them, they're not around anymore, which means I can talk without ending up like him." The room feels smaller. Frankie's eyes narrow. "When you see it, you're gonna understand why this case went cold, and you're gonna wish it stayed that way." His tone doesn't carry anger. It's almost matter of fact. Like he's not warning them out of kindness, he's warning them because it's part of the story. And maybe part of the trap. The agents step out of the interrogation room, leaving Frankie alone. The hallway is quiet, but the air is heavy. They know the risk. Frankie could be lying, feeding them just enough truth to make them bite. If they move resources, launch a search, and come up empty, it'll be another embarrassment for the Bureau. Another headline mocking a new lead that went nowhere. But if he's telling the truth, this could close one of the darkest, most shameful chapters in FBI history. One agent, a veteran of 30 years, speaks first. "We have to check it out." Another shakes their head. "It could be a setup. He could be luring us into something." "Then we take precautions," the lead agent says. "We verify what we can on the way, but if there's even a 1% chance..." The unspoken truth is clear. Daniel Cole was one of their own. You don't leave your own behind. Not if there's a chance to bring him home. They look through the glass at Frankie, who's sitting there calm, like he knows exactly how this is going to play out. One thing is certain. If they walk away now, they'll never know. And that is a risk the FBI can't ignore. It's still dark when the agents meet in the Bureau parking lot. Breath clouds the air. No one says much. Frankie is loaded into the back of the first SUV, wrists cuffed. He's not in an orange jumpsuit, just a plain jacket and jeans. He looks like a man on his way to a meeting, not a man pointing the FBI toward a dead agent's remains. The convoy pulls out. 4 unmarked SUVs. Headlights cut through the mist as they roll past warehouses and silent streets. Frankie sits between 2 armed agents. His eyes stay forward. Every so often he gives a short direction. "Left here." Keep straight. The city falls away. Streetlights become fewer, the roads rougher. They pass rows of empty factories, boarded-up windows, and chain-link fences with gaps torn out. Inside each vehicle, agents grip their sidearms. They know Frankie could be leading them into a trap, but no one says it out loud. The lead agent radios the others. Stay sharp, watch the rooftops. Frankie gives another command. Next right, then straight for about 2 miles. The SUVs bounce over potholes. A stray dog darts across the road. Then, out of the darkness, the silhouette of a massive building rises ahead. Frankie says nothing. The convoy slows to a crawl. The building looms over them, 4 stories of rotting brick and broken glass. It's an old meatpacking plant, long abandoned. The windows are shattered, jagged edges catching the faint glow of the headlights. Rust streaks run down the walls like old blood. The agents kill their engines, but keep their hands near their weapons. Frankie is pulled from the SUV. His cuffs stay on. An agent grips his arm tightly. "This the place?" the lead agent asks. Frankie nods once. "Yeah, been waiting a long time to come back here." A cold wind whistles through the gaps in the building's walls. Somewhere inside, metal bangs softly, like chains swaying. The agents fan out, scanning the perimeter. Faded letters are painted on the front, barely visible now. Marino Brothers meets. The lead agent signals 2 members of the team to check the side entrance. They find a rusted steel door, its bottom edge eaten away. Frankie smirks, doors unlocked. The agent pushes it open. It groans loud enough to echo. A stale wave of air escapes, carrying the smell of mold and something faintly sour. Flashlights click on. They step inside. The beam of the flashlights cuts through a haze of dust. The floor is slick in spots, the concrete stained dark from years of decay. The smell is stronger now, mildew mixed with something heavier, something that makes the back of your throat tighten. Rusted meat hooks hang from the ceiling on long chains, swaying gently even though there's no breeze. The light catches on their dull, corroded edges. "Watch your step," one agent warns. The floor is littered with scraps of wood, broken glass, and pieces of old machinery. Frankie walks slow, eyes scanning the shadows. He doesn't look nervous. The lead agent whispers into his radio, "We're inside, moving forward." In the corners, old meat lockers stand with their doors open, shelves collapsed inside. A rat darts between them and disappears into a crack in the wall. They pass rows of steel tables covered in rust and grime. Some still have ancient cutting tools on them, the handles rotted. Frankie finally stops near a heavy steel door with peeling red paint. He nods toward it. "That's where it starts," he says quietly. The agents exchange a look. One of them pulls the door open. The smell that spills out is enough to make them all step back. Frankie stops in the far corner of the plant. It's stacked high with broken wooden crates, splintered boards, and rusted metal parts. The agents exchange wary looks. This doesn't look like anything special, just more garbage. But Frankie crouches and starts shoving the crates aside. The wood groans as it scrapes across the concrete floor. Dust rises in the dim light, making the air even heavier. "Help me out here," Frankie says casually. One agent moves in, keeping a hand on his weapon while pushing a crate away. Slowly, a shape begins to appear under the debris, a large rectangle cut into the floor. Frankie brushes off a layer of grime, revealing thick, dark wood. It's a trapdoor, wide enough for a person to climb through. The edges are reinforced with iron hinges, blackened with age. "Been here since before I was born," Frankie mutters. He taps it with his boot, and the dull thud echoes in the empty building. An agent kneels to inspect it. The hinges are stiff but not locked. The wood is heavy, meant to keep whatever's below hidden. Frankie steps back, arms crossed, almost proud. "This is where your ghost is," he says. The room falls silent. No one moves. They all know. This could be the moment they've been waiting 16 years for. Or it could be a setup. One agent pulls on gloves, reaches for the iron handle, and looks up for the go-ahead. The lead agent gives a single nod. The trapdoor groans as it's pulled open, the hinges straining under years of rust. Cold, stale air seeps out from the darkness below, carrying a faint metallic smell. A short metal ladder disappears into the shadows. The lead agent shines his flashlight down. At the bottom is a narrow concrete space, and at the far end, standing out in the beam, is a steel door. The door is heavy, industrial, the kind used in walk-in freezers. Its once polished surface is dull and pitted with corrosion. Rust stains streak from the hinges, and the handle is thick with grime. Frankie climbs down first, moving slowly, his hand gliding over the ladder like he's been here before. He steps onto the concrete floor and walks straight to the steel door. He pats it twice, almost gently. "This is it," he says. 16 years right behind here." The agents join him at the bottom, their flashlights cutting sharp lines in the darkness. One of them tests the handle. It's stiff but still turns. A deep, hollow creak echoes as the latch shifts. Frankie doesn't flinch. "I told you I could bring you to him," he says quietly. "Now, do you want to open it or should I?" The lead agent steps forward, his hand on the door. He can feel the chill radiating through the steel. Everyone in the cramped space knows, once this door opens, there's no going back. The air is thick. The sound of their breathing is loud in the silence. Finally, the lead agent gives the order. "Open it." The handle moves with a screech. The seal breaks with a hiss of trapped, cold air. The door swings inward, revealing what's been waiting in the dark for more than a decade. Frankie doesn't rush them. He stands just inside the narrow freezer room, his hands shoved into his coat pockets, watching the agents tense at the sight of what lies beyond the steel door. Before anyone steps closer, he speaks again, his tone calm but heavy. "You need to understand something," he says. "This isn't just a body in there. It's not like somebody just killed him and tossed him in a hole." The agents glance at each other, uncertain whether to take him seriously or chalk it up to theatrics. Frankie shakes his head slowly. "No, this was done on purpose, thought out, meant to scare whoever found it, whether that was the cops, the feds, or me." The lead agent keeps his light trained on the dark interior, but Frankie continues. "They wanted it to stick in your head. You close your eyes after this, you'll still see it. Years from now, you'll still smell it. They built it to haunt." He shifts his weight, almost as if remembering the first time he saw it himself. This isn't about hiding the guy. It's about making sure his ghost walks into every room you're in for the rest of your life. One agent mutters, "Enough stories, open the door." Frankie doesn't argue. He just smiles faintly, steps back and says, "Don't say I didn't warn you." The steel door swings wider with a slow, grinding moan. What comes out first isn't the sight, it's the smell. A thick, rotting stench mixed with a bitter cold rushes over them, like an icy wave carrying something foul. The air is damp, heavy, clinging to their clothes and skin. Even the most seasoned agents, men who have stood over decomposed bodies in summer heat, instinctively pull back. One turns his face away and breathes through his sleeve. Another swallows hard, eyes watering. It's the kind of odor that doesn't just hit your nose. It seeps straight into your throat, coating it, making it hard to swallow. A cocktail of decay, old freezer burn, and something chemical that doesn't belong. Their flashlights cut into the gloom, catching frost crystals clinging to metal walls. The cold air swirls visibly, curling into the beam like smoke. Somewhere deeper inside, something is lying still. Frankie stays by the doorway, watching them fight their instincts. 16 years, he says softly, and it still smells like the day it happened. The lead agent forces himself forward, one bootstep echoing on the concrete. The beam of his flashlight trembles slightly, not from fear, but from the body's natural rejection of what it's about to see. Behind him, another agent mutters under his breath, "Jesus." The smell isn't just strong, it's oppressive. It feels alive, as if the freezer itself has been holding its breath for over a decade, waiting to exhale. And now it has. The agents step inside, flashlights cutting through the thick white mist swirling in the freezer. The air bites at their skin, so cold it makes their hands ache even through gloves. Their breaths turn into quick clouds in the beams of light. At first, nothing looks like a body. Just strange, uneven shapes are piled against the far wall, bulky forms coated in thick frost. The ice glitters under the flashlight beams, turning the shapes into strange, ghostly outlines. The lead agent moves closer, his boots scraping against the concrete floor. He wipes his glove across a nearby surface, and frost comes off in clumps, sticking to his fingertips. The shape beneath the ice is still unclear, like something wrapped in a heavy blanket, frozen solid. Another agent shifts his light to the left, catching the curve of what might be a shoulder or just a lump of frozen cloth. No one speaks. The cold is so sharp it makes every sound brittle, like it could shatter in the air. Frankie stays in the doorway watching them work. "See what I mean?" he mutters. "It doesn't even look real at first." One agent leans down, pressing closer. His breath fogs up his visor. Then he sees something, just a hint of color under the frost. Brown, maybe fabric. "Over here," he says quietly. The others move in, their beams crossing over the frozen shapes. One of them kneels, slowly scraping away the frost with the edge of his glove. More brown fabric appears, then a sleeve, then a fold. The shape is becoming human. As the frost peels away, the colors become clearer, faded brown wool frayed at the edges. The lead agent stops, staring. "That's a coat," he says. "And not just any coat. It's old, heavy, and exactly like the one Daniel wore the night he disappeared in 1995. The agents exchange looks. They've all seen the photos. Daniel walking out of his apartment that night. Daniel standing next to his car in the last security footage. In every one, he's wearing this coat. Beneath it, the fabric of a blue button-up shirt appears, stiff with frost. The light bounces off the frozen creases. Under that, faded jeans, the kind Daniel always wore off-duty. Even the stitching along the side matches. It's like he never had a chance to change his clothes. The realization sinks in heavy. This body has been frozen exactly as it was the night Daniel vanished, untouched for over a decade. One agent runs his flashlight slowly from head to toe, his eyes fixed on the details. The coat pockets are buttoned. The jeans are slightly wrinkled, as if he'd been moving when he stopped. Frankie clears his throat. "Told you they wanted you to recognize him. The clothes weren't an accident." The lead agent swallows hard. "Why keep him like this?" Frankie doesn't answer. The agents finally clear enough frost from the upper body to reach the head. At first, they expect to see skin, pale, maybe bloated from years in the cold. But as the ice falls away, something else appears. Smooth off-white. The beam of a flashlight catches it fully, and every agent freezes. It's not a face. It's a mask. A pale rubber mask covers the entire head, molded into the shape of a human face, but blank, emotionless. The eye holes are wide and empty, black shadows inside. The mouth is shut, lips pressed into a faint curve that isn't a smile or a frown, just nothing. One agent steps closer, his breath quickening. This is one of theirs," he says. "Mob initiation masks. Used in certain rituals, rare but known. They're meant to strip someone of identity, turn them into a message." Frankie shifts against the doorframe. "Told you this wasn't just murder, this was theater." The lead agent's light stays locked on the mask, tracing its edges. The rubber is cracked in a few places from the cold, showing tiny gaps where skin might be underneath. But the eyes, those hollow, black pits, are all anyone can look at. "They didn't want us to see his face," one agent mutters. "Or," Frankie says quietly, "they wanted you to remember this one instead." The freezer feels colder now. The silence thicker. Every man in the room knows that whoever staged this didn't just want Daniel dead. They wanted him to live forever in someone's nightmares. One of the agents leans in, his breath fogging in the cold air. His flashlight beam shakes slightly as it locks onto something glinting on the mask. It's a badge. Not just any badge, Daniel's FBI badge. The gold surface is tarnished, dulled by years in the cold, but the engraving is still clear. His name. His number. The room falls silent except for the faint hum of the freezer. Everyone in the space knows what that badge means. It's not a coincidence. Someone put it there for a reason. The lead agent, a man who's been with the Bureau for decades, whispers, "They wanted us to find him like this." Pinned right between the mask's empty eyes, the badge feels like an accusation, like it's staring directly at the people who were supposed to protect him. Frankie stands back, his hands shoved in his pockets. His expression doesn't change. He just says, "Told you it's a message." The agents exchange glances. None of them speak, but the truth is obvious. Whoever staged this wasn't just killing an undercover agent. They were spitting in the face of the entire FBI. It wasn't enough to hide the body. They wanted it preserved, displayed. Like a trophy. One agent finally pulls out a camera and begins snapping photos. The shutter clicks echoing in the freezer. Another writes down every detail in a small, battered notebook. But the badge, that's the part none of them can shake, because it means whoever did this had access to Daniel after he was killed. They took the time to pin it there. They wanted that badge to survive, even when the man wearing it couldn't. The lead agent finally says, "Document it. Don't touch it until forensics gets here." No one argues. They all know. Whatever happens next, this badge is going to speak louder than anything else in the case file. The frost along Daniel's body has begun to melt under the heat of the flashlights. That's when they see it. His wrists. Thick strips of silver duct tape wrap them tightly, the layers crisscrossed until his hands disappear beneath them. The same tape seals his ankles together. The edges are frayed, but the bonds are still strong. One agent crouches down for a closer look. "These weren't put on after," he mutters. "He died like this." The position of his body tells its own story. Knees bent, shoulders slumped forward. The tape bites deep into the skin. He never had a chance to fight back. Frankie watches quietly as the agents move around the frozen figure. "They didn't want him escaping," he says flatly. "It's more than that. The tape wasn't just restraint, it was control. A way to make sure Daniel knew, in his final moments, that he was completely powerless." The agents take more photos. Every inch of the tape is documented. They know if they pull it off now, they risk losing fingerprints or fibers. Still, no one can ignore the way it looks. Like someone tied him up, walked away, and then came back to finish the job. And then instead of burying him or dumping him, they put him here, sealed in a freezer, badge pinned to his face like a twisted monument. The room stays quiet. Even the seasoned agents can't hide the tightness in their jaws. It's one thing to kill a man. It's another to make sure he died knowing there was nothing, absolutely nothing, he could do to stop it. An agent's flashlight sweeps across the frost-covered floor and stops on a splash of white. He crouches, gloved fingers reaching for it. The cardboard is stiff with cold, edges curled slightly, but the image is clear. It's Daniel. Alive. He's sitting in what looks like the same position he's in now, wrists and ankles bound. The same duct tape biting into his skin. His head is tilted slightly forward, but his eyes are locked on the camera. There's no fear in them, not in the way you'd expect. It's something else, resignation maybe, or defiance. At the bottom of the photo in the familiar white frame is a red date stamp. The night Daniel disappeared. The agent holding the photo feels his stomach turn. This wasn't just a souvenir for the killer. It was proof. Proof that they had him alive, that they controlled every moment of what came next. Another agent steps closer, glancing between the Polaroid and Daniel's frozen form. "They took this before." His voice trails off. He doesn't need to finish the sentence. The Polaroid feels heavier than it should, like it's holding the weight of those final hours, moments the agents can't change, no matter how much they wish they could. Frankie watches from the corner, saying nothing, but the faint smirk curling at the edge of his mouth tells the agents he's seen this before. This was a calling card. The freezer feels smaller now, tighter. Every detail, the badge, the bindings, the Polaroid, paints a picture the agents can't ignore. This wasn't just about killing Daniel. It was about sending a message. The mob didn't care who he was. Or maybe that's not true, they cared very much. Enough to make sure the Bureau knew exactly what they'd done. They took their time. They staged the body. They made sure the badge was pinned where it couldn't be missed. They left the Polaroid so there. Be no doubt Daniel had been alive when they started. And then they locked him away like a prize, hidden but preserved, waiting for the day someone would open this door and understand. No badge could save you, not from them. The lead agent looks around the room, eyes landing on each member of his team. They've all seen bad things before, crime scenes that would keep most people awake at night. But this feels different. This feels like the mob looking the FBI in the eye and saying, "We can reach you anytime we want." Frankie finally breaks the silence. He was one of you, and he still ended up here. No one answers him. The agents know he's right. Every person in that freezer leaves with the same unspoken thought. This wasn't the end of something. This was a warning. A warning that the people who did this were still out there, and they weren't afraid of anyone. The metal chair squeaks as Frankie leans back, his eyes fixed on the ceiling. For a long moment, no one speaks. The agents across the table wait, pens ready, recorders running. Finally, Frankie exhales. "You've been chasing ghosts for 16 years, he says quietly. "Guess it's time I told you how it really went down." He starts slow, like he's winding himself up. Back in '95, Frankie was working under Salvatore Sal the Butcher Romano, the kind of guy who didn't just run the mob, he was the mob. Sal had eyes and ears everywhere. If someone sneezed in a bar across town, Sal knew before the tissues came out. The DEA sting had been in motion for months. Daniel, the undercover agent, was playing the role of a buyer. Big orders, clean cash, no questions. It was working. Too well, Frankie says. Sal started getting curious. This guy's too smooth, too perfect. That's when the whispers started. Someone in Sal's circle claimed they had a friend inside law enforcement. They didn't know names, just that someone in the deal smelled like a Fed. Frankie pauses, staring at the table. "And once Sal even suspected you were a Fed, well, you were already dead. You just didn't know it yet." One of the agents leans forward. "And Daniel?" Frankie nods slowly. "That's when Sal made the call. We weren't gonna sell him anything. We were gonna make an example out of him." Frankie says the leak happened fast, 3 days before the sting. Sal got a call late at night. Frankie didn't hear the full conversation, but he saw the change in Sal's face. Cold, calculated. The next morning, Sal met with his top men in the back of a butcher shop he owned. They didn't talk business in public anymore, not with this kind of heat. One of Sal's guys swore he'd heard from a reliable source in the police department. The buyer wasn't who he said he was. He was an FBI agent named Daniel Hart, and he was running a deep-cover operation to take Sal down. Sal didn't yell, didn't rage. He just chewed on a toothpick, nodded once, and said, "We'll handle it." Frankie remembers that moment clear as day. The order wasn't shouted. It didn't need to be. Everyone in that room understood what "handle it" meant. The plan shifted instantly. The meat wouldn't be a sale, it would be a trap. Sal's men started moving, switching locations, securing the warehouse, making sure they had enough muscle on site. And then Sal said something Frankie never forgot. "If the feds think they can walk into my world and walk out breathing, they've forgotten who owns this city." Daniel arrived at the warehouse just after 9 p.m., dressed like a buyer ready to drop serious cash. His wire was on. Backup was in place, but far enough away to avoid spooking the sellers. Inside, the air smelled like oil and dust. Dim overhead lights swung slightly. Daniel stepped forward, scanning for Sal. That's when the heavy door slammed shut behind him. From the shadows, figures emerged, 4, maybe 5 men. They moved fast, surrounding him before he could react. One ripped the wire from his chest, smashing it under his boot. Another man punched Daniel hard in the ribs. The wind left his lungs in a gasp. Frankie says it was over in seconds. Daniel's gun was gone, his arms twisted behind him. Duct tape bit into his wrists. His ankles were bound before he could even get a full breath back. Sal stepped out last, hands in his coat pockets, smiling like this was all just business. "Agent Hart," he said slowly, savoring the words. "Welcome to the family." Daniel didn't answer. Frankie remembers the sound of Daniel's breathing, sharp, controlled. No begging, no panic. Sal leaned close. "You're not leaving here tonight, but don't worry, we'll make sure the Bureau knows exactly what happened to you." Two men drag Daniel toward the rear of the warehouse. His hands are bound tight. One shoves him into the back seat of a black sedan. The doors slam and the engine roars to life. Daniel tries to look out the window, but someone grabs his head and forces it down. He can't see where they're going, only feel the turns and bumps of the road. The ride lasts maybe 20 minutes. No one speaks. The only sounds are the hum of the engine and the squeak of leather seats when someone shifts. Finally, the car slows. It pulls into a wide, empty lot. The air smells of rust and oil. Daniel is yanked out of the sedan. He sees a massive brick building ahead, windows broken, metal doors hanging loose. The old sign above the entrance is faded, but he can still make out the words, Romano Meat Co. Everyone in the city knows this place. It's been closed for years, but rumors say it's still owned by the Romano family. No one goes inside. The men push Daniel toward the entrance. The heavy steel door groans open. Inside, it's cold, dark, and silent, like the place itself is holding its breath. They take him deeper inside. They shove Daniel into a small, windowless room. The only light comes from a single bulb swinging overhead. A wooden chair sits in the middle. They force him into it and tape his wrists to the armrests. His ankles are bound to the chair legs. Then Salvatore Romano walks in. He's wearing a dark overcoat, his thick hands resting casually at his sides. He doesn't yell. He doesn't threaten. He just stands there watching Daniel. Finally he speaks. "Who sent you?" Daniel doesn't answer. Sal steps closer. "We know you're FBI. We know you've been listening. What we don't know is how much you've told them." Daniel stays silent. The questions keep coming: names, contacts, how many agents are watching, who the informants are. Every time Daniel refuses, a punch lands or the chair tips hard to one side. Hours pass. The bulb hums overhead. The air smells of sweat and old meat. But no matter what they do, Daniel's answer is always the same: nothing. And Salvatore, he's running out of patience. Salvatore finally steps back, breathing heavy. He wipes his hands on a white cloth like he's finished a job. Then he looks at his men and says, "Make it clear, make it loud." They know what that means. Daniel's body is dragged to the center of the room. One man brings over a black ski mask. Another tosses Daniel's FBI badge onto the floor beside him. Then Sal picks up a Polaroid camera from a table. He walks close, too close, and clicks the shutter. The flash burns for a second, freezing the image. Daniel, bound, bruised, and staring into the lens. Sal turns the camera around, shakes the photo, and looks at it. Then he checks his watch. "Tonight," he says, "they'll find him." The date stamp on the Polaroid marks the exact night Daniel disappeared. Sal tells his men to leave the picture next to the body, right where it will be discovered. "They need to know," he says. "No badge, no gun, no law, nothing can protect you from me. It's not just a murder. It's a message." And Salvatore knows it will echo through the FBI for years. Frankie leans forward in the interrogation room, his voice low. "After that night," he says, "Sal told me I had a new job: watch the freezer." The freezer wasn't for meat anymore. It was where Daniel's body stayed, hidden in the basement of the old plant. Every week Frankie was sent to check it, make sure it was sealed, make sure no one went near it. Sal's warning was simple: if you talk, you'll be next, and no one will find you either. Frankie obeyed. For years he kept the secret. The FBI searched, Daniel's family begged for answers, but Frankie stayed quiet. The fear never went away, neither did the guilt. Frankie takes a deep breath before answering the agent's last question. "I'm old," he says. "My heart's shot. The doctors say I got months, maybe a year." He pauses, staring at the table. "I've done a lot of bad things, but keeping this secret, it's eaten me alive." He looks up. "Daniel didn't deserve what happened. He was just doing his job, and I let him rot in that freezer for 16 years. Frankie explains that when he heard he might spend the rest of his life in prison, he realized there was nothing left to protect. No freedom, no future. "And Sal," he says with a bitter smile, "Sal been dead for 5 years. He can't hurt me now." The room is silent. "I'm done carrying it," Frankie says. "They can do whatever they want to me, but the truth's out now. That's all that matters. The agents exchange a look. For the first time in 16 years, they finally know exactly what happened to Daniel. And it's worse than they ever imagined. The sky is gray. A cold wind moves through the crowd as two lines of FBI agents stand shoulder to shoulder. Every one of them wears a black suit. Their badges shine in the pale light. At the end of the path, a black hearse waits. The back door opens and 6 pallbearers, agents who worked with Daniel, step forward. Inside is a casket covered by a folded American flag. The sound of bagpipes begins. The song is slow, deep, and heavy, echoing across the cemetery. The pallbearers lift the casket and begin the walk. Every step is in perfect time with the music. The agents on both sides stand perfectly still. Hands rise to foreheads in a salute as the casket passes. Some stare straight ahead, others glance down, their jaws tight. Daniel's family follows behind, his wife, his daughter, and his older brother. They move slowly, holding hands, the weight of the moment pulling at them. At the front of the crowd, the casket is set down. An honor guard folds the flag with sharp, practiced movements. When it is complete, the lead guard kneels and hands the flag to Daniel's wife. Her hands shake as she takes it. She whispers something no one else can hear. Daniel's daughter steps up to the microphone. She's in her mid-20s now, her voice soft but steady. "I was 8 years old when my dad disappeared," she begins. "For years, I didn't understand where he went or why he wasn't there for my birthdays, my school plays, or when I graduated high school." She pauses, glancing at the casket. "I grew up wondering if he was alive somewhere, if maybe one day he'd walk back through the door." Her hands grip the edges of the podium. "Finding out the truth hurt. It broke something in me. But it also gave me something I never had before, answers. I finally know what happened. And I finally know he didn't leave us by choice." She smiles faintly. "He was doing his job. He was helping people. And even though it cost him his life, I'm proud of him. I always will be." Her voice shakes on the last words. "I love you, Dad, and I'm glad you can finally rest." She steps down, wiping her eyes, and joins her mother in the front row. The crowd is silent, the only sound coming from the wind moving through the trees. In the weeks after the funeral, Frankie's testimony spreads through law enforcement circles like wildfire. He had given names, dates, and locations, details no one outside the crew could have known. The FBI reopens multiple cold cases tied to the Romano crime family. Files that had been gathering dust for decades are pulled from storage. One case involves a missing police detective from 1987. Another is the unsolved killing of a federal witness in 1990. Frankie's timeline matches both. He describes stash houses, safe meeting spots, and the locations where bodies were buried or hidden. Investigators send teams to old warehouses, abandoned docks, and long-forgotten storage units. In some cases, they find remains. In others, they find weapons or clothing still sealed away, evidence linking the murders to Sal Romano's crew. It becomes clear that Daniel's death was only one part of a much bigger picture. The same crew had been eliminating threats for years, always careful, always sending a message. Frankie's confession doesn't solve everything. Many of the men responsible are dead, but for the families who have waited years for answers, the truth finally cracks open the silence. And it all starts with one man finally talking. When the FBI finishes going through Frankie's statement, the mood in the office is mixed. On one hand, they finally know exactly what happened to Daniel. On the other, the reality hits hard. Most of the men who planned or carried out the killing are already gone. Sal Romano, the boss who gave the order, died years ago from heart failure. 2 of his top enforcers were murdered in separate mob wars in the early 2000s. Another key figure is in a nursing home, barely able to speak or recognize faces. The few surviving members of the crew are already serving long sentences for other crimes. The oldest is 83, suffering from late-stage dementia. The youngest is in a maximum security prison and will likely die there. Prosecutors admit that even if they could file charges, these trials would go nowhere. Witnesses are dead, Evidence is decades old, and the remaining suspects are in no condition to stand trial. For Daniel's family, it feels like the truth arrived far too late to matter in court. The only justice they get is knowing the full story, and hopping it stops the same thing from happening to someone else. Frankie doesn't live long after giving his confession. Months later, news comes from the prison infirmary. He's dead. The cause is listed as complications from cancer, the same illness that had been eating away at him during his final interviews. When agents hear the news, there's no celebration. Frankie was the last living link to that night. With him gone, every first-hand detail that wasn't recorded or written down is lost forever. Some agents believe he only talked because he knew the end was near. Others think guilt finally broke him. Either way, his death leaves a strange emptiness. The man who helped kill one of their own had also been the one to finally close the case. Daniel's daughter hears about Frankie's passing through her family's FBI contact. She doesn't feel sympathy, but she admits there's a sense of finality now. The man who kept her father's body hidden for 16 years is no longer breathing the same air as her. Frankie is buried in an unmarked grave behind prison walls. No one from his old crew shows up. No flowers. No visitors. Just another quiet end to a man who carried a deadly secret for too long. Months after the investigation ends, the city approves the demolition of the old meatpacking plant. By the time the bulldozers arrive, the building is little more than a decaying shell. Rusted beams jut out at odd angles, windows are smashed, and weeds push through the cracked concrete floor. Crews work fast, swinging the wrecking ball into the walls that once hid Daniel's body. With every hit, bricks crumble and dust fills the air. Neighbors watch from behind police tape, some remembering the plant as a place where their parents or grandparents once worked, long before it became a mob hiding spot. The only thing the demolition team is told to save is the heavy freezer door. It takes 3 men and a forklift to move it. The thick metal is scarred and dented, but it's intact. Weeks later, that door is transported to Washington, D.C., where it's placed in the FBI's museum. It sits under heavy glass, next to a plaque explaining Daniel's story. Visitors can press their hands to the glass and imagine the cold, silent space it once sealed shut. For agents, it's more than a display. It's a reminder of a case they'll never forget. In Quantico, Virginia, new FBI recruits sit in a lecture hall as an instructor pulls up a slide with Daniel's photo. The instructor tells them this isn't just a story about the mob. It's about how one mistake can destroy years of undercover work. They learn how Daniel's mission was compromised by a single leak. A small piece of information, whispered to the wrong person, spread quickly through the underworld. Within hours, Sal Romano's crew knew Daniel was a federal agent. The recruits hear how carefully planned operations can fall apart in seconds, and how the cost isn't always measured in arrests or convictions, but in human lives. Daniel's name is now part of the official training material, alongside other agents who never made it home. At the end of the session, the instructor pauses. "Remember," he says, "every detail you protect could be the difference between your partner living or dying." Daniel didn't get that chance. For the rookies, it's a sobering moment. They walk out of the room not just thinking about tactics and procedure, but about the real weight of the badge they're training to wear. For years, Daniel's family lived with questions that had no answers. Now, they finally know the truth. They know where he spent his final moments and who was responsible. But closure doesn't erase pain, it just puts a frame around it. His wife says she can finally stop imagining him alive somewhere, unable to come home. His daughter, now a grown woman, says she can finally visit his grave without wondering if part of the story is still missing. But the image of the freezer never leaves their minds. They've seen the crime scene photos. They've stood in front of the freezer door at the museum. They know exactly what was behind it. When Daniel's daughter has children of her own, she tells them her father was a hero who died doing his job. She doesn't share every detail, but she doesn't have to. The truth is heavy enough. The family gathers each year on the anniversary of his death. They bring flowers, tell stories, and leave knowing the man they lost is no longer hidden in the dark. He's home, and his story will be remembered. That's the only justice left to them.